Usually I sit here every year on July 1st and say to myself, wow, I can't believe that the halfway mark of the year is here. I can't believe that the year is halfway over. But yet we sit here on July 1st of 2020 and say to ourselves, this entire year of 2020 has felt like a fucking century. How is it already the halfway mark? It feels like it's been 10 years in the span of 6 months. So hopefully this encourages the year to kind of speed up the process so we can skip on ahead to 2021. What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 344 of AskGSM here today for July 1st, 2020. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we go any further, as always, got to do a cheap plug before we go on with the video. If you haven't already, check out my exclusive interview on dailyddt.com right now with WWE NXT superstar Roderick Strong. We're talking a strap match tonight with Dexter Lumis on the Great American Bash edition of NXT. We're talking all about Dexter Lumis, the Undisputed Era, getting to WWE, his history with Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly's status and when we might expect to see him back, and so much more. His favorite opponents. We had a great, candid conversation yesterday over the phone. Check out the exclusive interview right now for dailyddt.com. As far as how you guys can send in questions to the show for me to answer right here on hashtag AskGSM every single Wednesday, you can do so by sending me a question on the Twitter machine at WrestlerRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So we start off with FD from Facebook here today with 3 questions. The first one being, this question about Impact Wrestling is divided into 2, the good and the bad. So let's start with the bad. With the recent stripping of the Impact World Heavyweight Championship from Tessa Blanchard, do you feel that the Impact World title has seen a terrible track record recently with how their champion ended up either deciding to quit the company and move on to their competition or something bad happening to the title? And how would the recent strained relationship between Tessa and the Impact management have impacted, no pun intended, he says, their long-term future in terms of their reputation and perception from current and former wrestlers? Finally, do you feel that Tessa's title reign was a success or a failure overall, and did she live up to her billing as the first ever female to hold a Impact Men's World Championship overall in Impact whatever? So, a couple of questions there within one question. As far as the Tessa stuff is concerned, I'll go into more detail about this tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio, but no one comes out of this situation looking good at all. Now, Tessa has a reputation for not having a great attitude. Now, I've met Tessa, I've interviewed Tessa, she's been great to me every time we've interacted, but it seems like any company that she's worked for, there were rumors a couple of years ago that WWE didn't pick her up, which would have been a surefire thing. I mean, she was in the Mae Young Classic, she has a look, she looked like a star even then. And, when they first started using her 4 or 5 years ago, and she kind of had that babyface look about her, and there really wasn't anything special about Tessa Blanchard, and at the time she might have been like 19, 20 years old, I can see them not wanting to pick her up, but by the time that she was in the Mae Young Classic in 2017, she already had adapted that darker persona, like dark hair, like that evil, badass bitch vibe, So there was really no reason for them to not sign her, and they didn't. And there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of years, and, she said it wasn't the right time, and they may have offered her a deal. There really is no concrete evidence one way or the other whether they offered her a deal and she turned it down. I find that very hard to believe. I think she wants to go to WWE. They just didn't want her at that point. There's been a lot of speculation that was due to attitude issues, and now we can kind of see why with the whole Impact Wrestling thing. So she's not been on the show since March, I think. That was when the whole quarantine started. I don't know when her last televised appearance was. I'm pretty sure it was either in early April or late March. She won the championship back in January. I would not consider her reign a success at all. I love Tessa. I really am a big fan of hers in the ring. As a person, it's questionable. I mean, we got to remember, too, going back, all the way back to January, the same weekend that she won the Impact World Championship, there was this whole thing on social media about her being a racist, using a racial slur, and there were a lot of women that came out against Tessa Blanchard. Are they all jealous and wanted to slander her and Would they have made up this story if it wasn't true? Maybe one or two people. There were a lot of women that came out with not so nice stories about Tessa Blanchard and how they treated her. And yeah, that was a couple of years ago. But the issue is that whether she said it or not, she denied it. So she never offered a formal apology. She never issued a formal apology online. She simply denied it and moved on. There's nothing to see here, people. And then the same company that defended her still put the top title on her anyway. Impact that same weekend still crowned her the new world champion. And honestly, I thought it was the right move. She had a lot of momentum. She was in the right place at the right time. Her and Sammy had a great feud going into that pay-per-view. That was it Rebellion? I don't remember. Hard to Kill, I think it was. That Hard to Kill pay-per-view. And it made sense to crown her as the first women's world champion. Her reign probably would have gone a lot differently had she bothered to show up the last couple of months. And back in March, April, May, I kind of get it because due to the whole, travel ban and whatever. But they've somehow managed to work around that with the North and the Deaners or Cody Deaner. They're Canadian superstars. They've gotten their Canadian stars back on the show. So if they're back on the show, I would assume that Tessa can come back. Now, again, there's a lot more that goes into this. There was a lot more that goes into this whole situation. There were reports from Sean Rossett, Fightful, PW Insider. I think it was PW Insider, and they're all very credible sources, so I absolutely believe this for what it's worth, was that, she was asked to at least film promos, and that she, I guess, could have done the tapings, but she chose not to because she's due to get married soon to Daga, who is also currently working for Impact as of right now. And I guess she feared that if she went to the States to film for TV, she couldn't go back. And she didn't want to potentially miss her own wedding, which I totally get. But the fact that she wouldn't even film content for their fucking TV show a month ago is so petty and ridiculous. Like, I guess they needed promos from her for that June 2nd, my birthday episode of Impact Wrestling a month ago, and she wouldn't even do that. So it's like, there's definitely some bad blood there. I know there were rumors about a year ago, oh, she's leaving Impact. Obviously, her contract didn't expire then. It was set to expire June 30th, reportedly. They went ahead and fired her. Now, Impact isn't in the right here either. And again, I'm probably going into too much detail about this, and I should just save it for tomorrow. But Impact doesn't come out of this thing looking too great either. Because Tessa was refusing to make dates. They had the impression that she wasn't going to be at the pay-per-view. So they had this whole tournament to crown a new number one contender to Tessa's championship while she was away. That was won by Ace Austin. Okay? They then made an announcement that they were going to make a formal decision on the status of the world championship. And they did, declaring that Tessa would be at Slammiversary. We didn't hear from her. We didn't see her. She didn't put out a statement about it, blah, blah, blah. But they did announce for the Slammiversary pay-per-view, which is July 18th, in front of no fans, but I think they're taping it in front of on a closed set in Nashville. It will be Tessa defending the championship in a five-way with Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, Michael Elgin, who is also now gone, and Eddie Edwards, who was in quarantine, is back now. He's not in Mexico, I don't think. I think he lives here in the States. But anyway, so he had come back. A lot of their stars had come back, but not Tessa. Tessa made no statement about the match. She filmed no promos promoting the match at all. And then, despite being under the impression that she wasn't going to make the event, they went ahead and advertised her anyway. Why the fuck would you do that? Why would you keep the championship on a woman whose contract expires at the end of the month after she already refused to film promos? Why not avoid this whole thing and strip her of the championship a month ago? They must have had some sort of inclination that she wasn't easy to work with. I mean, this couldn't have just completely come out of nowhere. And I don't know if it's a sense of unhappiness or what. She's the fucking world champion. It's not like they weren't doing anything with her, or they never gave her the championship, or it was a month-long run. She's technically been champion since January. Almost 6 months she was champion for, without ever really being on TV. And I don't know. Impact looked like fucking dumb. I feel for them a little bit, but then when you realize that they kind of figured that she was on the way out anyway, and that her contract expired on June fucking 30th, you got to think to yourself, the more things change with that company, the more things stay the same. It's unbelievable to me. It really is. Like, we heard stories about this in the old regime when Dixie Carter was in charge, how Bobby Roode's contract fucking expired the pay-per-view, like the weekend of a pay-per-view, and they didn't re-sign him until like right before the show. How does that happen? I just don't get that. I don't understand that. And this has been an ongoing trend with them for a long time now. A long time. They'll build things up. Like the whole, what was it? The Rampage Jackson Tito Ortiz fight in Bellator, maybe it was, when they were still on Spike with Impact. And it never happened. They took the two off of TV immediately because they didn't want to go through with the match. So why would you even bother promoting it in the first place? You know what I mean? Like, regardless of who's in charge at Impact, it seems like the same shit still happens. And every other company has their own faults. Ring of Honor went through a lot of shit last year. WWE's constantly facing backlash from people, and in a lot of cases, rightfully so. Specifically lately with the whole COVID shit. New Japan doesn't really seem to have many issues, but like Impact is no exception. When it comes to shit like this, and like you said, is the World Championship tarnished? I don't know if it's tarnished, but it feels like there's some sort of curse here. So let's go back over the last couple of years of Impact's reigns of their list of former world champions, okay? So before Tessa, it was Sami Callihan, who held the championship for all of like 3 months. Didn't really do much with the belt. He was clearly a transitional champion for Tessa to take the title off of. I like Sami. I think he's a really good performer. He does have history, I think, of domestic abuse or something along those lines. He's not the most politically correct person, might be the right way to put it, in terms of, he hasn't always... There's been some shit there with Sami Callihan before, although compared to everyone else they put the championship on in recent years, the guy might be a fucking saint. But I like Sami, so they had the championship on him for a little while. Brian Cage was champion for a number of months last year. He was injured for most of his reign, unfortunately. And with Brian Cage, so he loses the championship late last year, and he was gone by January. His contract expired, and he left. They built him up for a while. He's a former X Division champion, world champion. He went undefeated for like 2 years. He was undefeated for a long time. And then he left within 2 years of arriving in Impact. He's already gone to go to AEW. So he's out of there. Before him, it was Johnny Impact, who's obviously now in WWE. He dropped the championship to Cage, left Impact in the summer of last year, and is now back in WWE. Before Johnny Impact, it was Austin Aries, who is now in the news for a completely different reason, and I'm a AA fan. Not so sure anymore, though, after reading comments that he's made in recent days. I mean, you could really go back years for dumb shit that guy has said. But specifically, like in the last day or two alone with the whole COVID shit, up there with Loki, is some of the dumbest shit I've read as far as not wearing a mask. Like, how stupid can you be? And to voice your opinion on that type of thing, you can't be surprised with the backlash that you get. Like, I don't want to hear, keep your opinions to yourself. Like, the guy has every right to voice his opinion, but he has to know with an opinion as dumb as that one, that he's going to get backlash from people. And again, rightfully so. So anyway, Austin Aries was champion for a while in 2018. Literally, the first day that he came back, a couple of months after leaving WWE or getting fired from there, whatever, they put the championship right back on Aries on night fucking 1. After he beat Eli Drake. He was champion for the better part of 2018, with the exception of like a 2-week period when he dropped it like Pentagon Jr., who was I love Pentagon, but he also went on to leave for AEW last year. So Austin Aries was champion for a while. I guess they were under the impression that he would be back after he dropped the championship. He has not been back since. He stood up and he completely no-sold the end of the world move that Johnny Impact does, the Starship Pain and whatever. He flipped off the camera, and he's explained his side of the story before. I don't know if he was building to a future angle or whatever, but the guy never came back. So who gives a shit about keeping your heat if he won't even be back in the promotion? I honestly don't think we've really seen him in any major stage since then. I think he was in MLW for a little while last year. He may still be there, I don't know. But he hasn't worked with Ring of Honor in a couple of years, at least since 2018. It's odd that AEW wouldn't pick him up, but I think the fact that, the type of reputation that he has probably explains a lot as far as that goes. So anyway, they had Austin Aries for a while. Pentagon's gone. Eli Drake, gone. He was fired about a year ago for some dumb shit. I don't really think Eli Drake's a problem, but... I heard his side of the story recently, actually, in his radio show for the NWA, and that seemed like an Impact problem, but so they got rid of him about a year ago after he was champion for a little while. Alberto El Patron before him. The list goes on and on and on. When Patron was champion, the guy fucking abused Paige at an airport, and all this shit happened, and they wouldn't take the championship off of him until they were, kicking and screaming to do so, and they finally did it, and he was a whole fucking publicity nightmare for them. He was only there for a year, and he caused them way more grief than should have been necessary. Way more grief than good, I'll put it that way. When Patron was there, the former, Alberto Del Rio. So, yeah, that championship, I would say, is cursed to a certain extent. And Tessa's been no exception, unfortunately. Hopefully, whoever wins it at Slammiversary, whether it is Trey, Austin, Eddie, I assume it's going to the fourth mystery person. If it's Eric Young, who gives a fuck, dude? I don't give a fuck about Eric Young in 2020 being... I didn't give a shit about him being world champion back in 2014. I like Eric Young, but I've never really been his biggest fan. I have no interest in seeing Eric Young in 2020 as the Impact World Champion. Now, EC3 is a different story. If they were to bring back EC3, he wins the World Championship back, EC 3-time, Impact World Champion, that's kind of cool. They made him into a star. He kind of did everything before he left there two years ago. Wow, it's crazy. I didn't think he was in WWE for 2 years, and they fucking wasted the guy. But anyway, they can bring him back, put the championship on him from night one. I wouldn't have an issue with that. But like Eric Young, who fucking cares? Who cares? So anyway, on to your second question. Now for the good. Do you feel that Slammiversary 2020 will be one of the most significant events that Impact could potentially have in a long time, given the potential of the arrival of several recently released WWE superstars to their brand, and how their roster will be shaping up moving forward, and especially their Knockouts division, which I've seen comments that this is the best women's roster in pro wrestling right now, not forgetting their men's and tag team rosters as well, and why. Also, what is one match you are looking forward to the most for Slammiversary 2020? First, for that last question, Willie Mack and Chris Bay, I'm really looking forward to. The whole show has potential. The Knockouts Gauntlet match, I love their women's roster. You mentioned that. I would agree, at least out of the American promotions. Yeah, WWE, with WWE, though, the issue is that all of their women are spread out over the course of like 4 or 5 brands. NXT, NXT UK, Raw, and SmackDown. Not 205 Live, there's no women on that show. But even taking into account everyone, I mean, probably NXT. The thing is, if you want to consider the overall company, then yeah, WWE. But with Charlotte being out for a little while, Becky Lynch is gone for right now. I mean, Impact's Knockouts division, they don't have different shows. They only have one division. So it's better than Raw's, it's better than SmackDown's. NXT, maybe. They still have Ripley, but they lost Bianca, they lost Shayna. The division isn't firing in as many cylinders as it was previously, but Shirai's been a good champion. She is great in that role. It's neck and neck with NXT. It's much better than AEW's women's division, which is improving. I will say that. I will defend their division. Between Baker and Statlander unfortunately being hurt, that doesn't really help matters. But they have made strides in the right direction in improving that division. So I will give them credit where credit is due. And I'm not including like Stardom and promotions like that, because clearly their women's wrestling over in Japan in certain companies is out of this world. So as far as American promotions go, it is one of the better, if not the best, women's roster right now. But anyway, you mentioned a lot of different things there. How Slammiversary could be a significant event with whatever's going on. So they have a pretty good card. They have that Knockouts Gauntlet match. They have Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace, which I'm looking forward to. Grace's first major championship defense. Deonna Purrazzo's first major match since coming back to Impact, a couple of weeks ago. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do at the pay-per-view. I'm sure they will have at least 1 or 2 people from WWE that was recently released show up. I think Gallows and Anderson, spoiler alert, I probably should have said that before, but it's no secret. It's pretty much a lock that they're going to Impact, which is cool. I guess it would allow them, when New Japan allows them to start working over there again, that they can work for New Japan, which is pretty sick. I thought New Japan... The thing is, I don't think it's a working relationship between Impact and New Japan, because New Japan fucking hates Impact from like a decade ago. I think it has more to do with like, okay, we won't keep you exclusive to Impact. You can work elsewhere, which is kind of cool. So anyway, so I don't know what I was getting. Oh, Gallows and Anderson, I assume they might be showing up at the pay-per-view. The North versus Shamrock and Callahan sounds cool. But Willie Mack and Chris Bay should be my favorite match of the night. I'm just calling it right now. But yeah, they're really hyping up the event big. They're really heavily teasing the arrival of former WWE stars, which is kind of cool, which they should be doing. I mean, I hate to say, they're kind of capitalizing off the buzz of all these like no-namers from WWE, but some of these people could have some real potential. Like Deonna Purrazzo is a great get for them. EC3 would be. Gallows and Anderson, they're two of the more underutilized people from WWE that were let go. So I'm excited to see where they go from here. His third question, with NXT counteracting what AEW is planning for Fyter Fest, as AEW's 2-week pay-per-view-like special on television with their Great American Bash 2-week special, do you see the strategy of NXT wanting to do their own pay-per-views or special events to counteract the strategy that AEW do for their own events, or vice versa, as a norm moving forward, and how would this affect, either benefit or hurt, in the long term, the NXT versus AEW Wednesday night rivalry going forward? So, it doesn't bother me that Great American Bash is now a 2-week event suddenly out of nowhere, against Fyter Fest. Because of course, why wouldn't it be? What would you expect? They're just going to roll over and die and just say, hey, yeah, AEW, take all the viewership. Like, my issue is when they would schedule, if they were to schedule like a takeover up against the pay-per-view. That to me is annoying. They haven't done that yet, thankfully. Counteracting the programming, we already know, like, the shows are happening regardless. It's not like Double or Nothing has been planned for Memorial Day weekend for a year now. And then NXT all of a sudden, like a month before, says, hey, we're going to have a takeover that day. Like when they did that with the Evolve thing about a year ago, Fight for the Fallen was the same night as that Evolve show. I'm sure everyone watched Fight for the Fallen. I mean, I saw the Evolve show the next day. I watched Fight for the Fallen first because the Evolve show, like, it was cool, but like, who cares? Compared to AEW's second or third major event. But I'm sure they did that on purpose to steer people away from watching the AEW pay-per-view. I'm not even sure if it was at the same time, actually. It might have been at a different time. I don't remember. But either way, the whole Wednesday Night War thing, it makes sense. Why wouldn't they want to put up a big match against AEW? Yeah, I'm not watching both at the same time anyway. It makes me want to choose, but hey, I'm really looking forward to tonight. I'm really looking forward to next week. As far as I'm concerned, I'm watching AEW first tonight, and then I'm watching NXT first next week. Because I'm really looking forward to Keith Lee and Adam Cole. Even though I'm excited for Moxley and Cage, and I'm expecting that to be a great match. But the Keith Lee and Adam Cole match I've been longing for a long time. So, no, it's smart. I have no issue with it whatsoever. People are like, oh, fuck WWE. How could they do this? What the fuck do you expect them to do? I saw Cody Rhodes' sister or whatever saying, oh, you owe me the rights, WWE. For what fucking reason? WWE's owned the rights to that pay-per-view name for 20 years now. Yeah, it is annoying that they could do the Starrcade show as a fucking house show. That's stupid. With it being like the crown jewel of WCW, now it's a fucking house show in the middle of December. That's like a network special, headlined by Rusev and Bobby Lashley. Yeah, that was annoying. But I mean, I can't say I'm surprised that they're using the Great American Bash name. It's July. 4th of July is this weekend. Dusty Rhodes was heavily involved with NXT. They've used War Games before. What were the people complaining about that? Anyway, I have no issue with it whatsoever, to answer your question. At noob_n_co 1991, with Charlotte Flair out, will WWE be focusing on their talent on Raw like Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, and Shayna Baszler? That's the hope. I don't think they will. I really don't. Because I think a lot of people, I don't know if I talked about this last week, but I think a lot of people thought that when Ronda Rousey left, like, oh, Ronda Rousey's gone after WrestleMania 35. It's time for them to start showcasing Ember Moon and all these other people. Bayley started getting more opportunities, but that's really about it. Becky was already hot. Charlotte was already hot. Ember Moon got some opportunities, and then she got hurt. But it's not like they were going to put the championship on her anyway. But that's really about it. I don't think Charlotte being out will really affect anything. I mean, I would love for it to, but the fact they're putting fucking Sasha Banks in the championship picture goes to show they don't really have many plans to push Shayna or Bianca right now. Listen, I'm looking forward to Asuka and Sasha. I'm really happy they're doing it. But why are they having a SmackDown wrestler come in and go for the Raw Women's Championship? It makes sense with the Sasha Bayley Asuka story they're telling right now, specifically with Sasha and Bayley. But come on. They have a whole division of women on Raw that could be going for that championship right now. And don't say Nia Jax because she's terrible. I'm talking about, again, Shayna, Bianca. Bianca has not been on the show in 3 fucking months. Why even bother calling her up at that point? Shayna, I don't know what the hell's going on with her, but I don't get your hopes up is what I'm going to say. His second question, with fans upset WWE is dragging out the Sasha Banks versus Bayley feud, do you think WWE will get it started? I assume soon is what you meant. I hope so. I mean, the issue is not, I don't think people are getting upset. I'm not going to sit here and say, fuck this company for dragging it out. I was hoping for it at WrestleMania. I am happy they're waiting until SummerSlam. It's given the story more time to breathe. And it's been a lot better now than it was back in January, I'll say. Bayley and Sasha have been one of the highlights of WWE programming for the past month or two. And I'm someone that was not too high on the idea of Bayley as a heel champion a couple of months ago, because she wasn't doing great work. The promos sucked. The matches sucked. She just wasn't doing well at all. But having Sasha back on a more regular basis, because Sasha was in and out for a while, she's kind of finding her footing in the role, which is nice. The matches have been better. The Tamina match notwithstanding at Money in the Bank. I'm hoping SummerSlam is when it's going to end, though, is when we get the big Sasha-Bayley match. Because the issue is that they're doing Bayley and Nikki Cross at Extreme Rules. Why? Like, Bayley is literally be every woman in that SmackDown Women's division. Even people that aren't on the show right now. Like, I could see people saying, oh, wait until Ember Moon comes back. She already beat Ember Moon, too. She beat Ember Moon at SummerSlam last year. She beat her on SmackDown after that, too. She's beaten Carmella. She's beaten Alexa Bliss. She's beaten Nikki Cross. She's beaten Dana Brooke. She's beaten fucking Tamina. When you have to go to Tamina, when you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for Tamina to go for a championship in WWE, that just means, okay, we've run out of ideas. We've run out of people to go for that championship. And the issue is that she's beaten all these women twice. Lacey Evans, Naomi, everybody except for Sasha. On SmackDown anyway. I mean, she's beaten Sasha multiple times before in NXT, but not on SmackDown yet. So, yeah, they got to do it at SummerSlam. They can't drag it out. Oh, wait till there's fans. Dude, I agree with you. But if they weren't going to wait until there were fans for Drew McIntyre's big moment, there's no way they're waiting until there's fans for Sasha and Bayley. It would help a lot, and I do prefer that. But how can you drag this story out for another 6 months? They're already the tag team champions. They've already beaten a bunch of teams. Bayley's already beaten everyone else. After Sasha loses at Extreme Rules to Asuka, what more can you do with these women? You can't. The SmackDown Women's division is suffering. They need to move on from Bayley as champion. I like Bayley, but she's literally beaten everybody. They got to move on. Who will take the women's tag team titles from Sasha Banks and Bayley? Maybe Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott reunion, or the Iconics, or Asuka and Io Shirai. I'm hoping a team from NXT. I mean, I guess it could be a Riott Squad reunion. I never really gave a shit about the Riott Squad, but it looks like Riott and Morgan are getting back together, which is probably for the best. For a few reasons. One, they weren't doing anything previously. Ruby Riott has literally not won a match in like a year and a half. Like, that's pretty bad on TV. So this would benefit her. It's like the Kurt Hawkins dilemma a little bit, how he was doing nothing on his own until he teamed with Zack Ryder again, then they won Tag Team Gold. That could be the same story. Liv Morgan's been floundering recently in the feud with Lana and Natalya. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? You know? So, anyway, so yeah, Liv Morgan and Riott, maybe they could be the team, potentially. I would rather see the titles go to NXT, to a team like Dakota Kai and Reina Gonzalez, or Raquel, excuse me, because they're a team anyway. They're dominant. I liked Nox and Blackheart when they teamed up a couple of weeks ago. You could form more teams, so I hope it goes to NXT. Asuka and Io Shirai just seems random. I mean, they could be teaming up as early as next week. If tonight's Banks and Io Shirai match ends on like a DQ, they could be building to Sasha and Bayley versus Asuka and Io Shirai, which sounds fucking sick, to be honest with you. The only thing is that I don't see Asuka and Io Shirai becoming a regular tag team. Asuka already has a tag team partner in Kairi Sane. Don't push Kairi Sane off to the side. And her whole status is up in the air right now. That's a different story for a different day. But yeah, if it was up to me, I guess the Riott Squad would make the most sense. I would go with a team from NXT, either Nox and Blackheart again. Well, I mean, they didn't win him the first time, but they can get another shot, win him, whatever. Or probably Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. I don't see Dakota Kai winning the NXT Women's Championship from Io Shirai. I assume she wins tonight's four-way. I don't think she wins the championship, but she could become one half of the tag team champion, so that's what I'm hoping happens. Anyway, so we then have John Ritland from the Twitter machine and Real Honesty with John Ritland from the YouTube machine as well. Check out his show. Great stuff. At Reborn Again, his first question was, why does Lana look and sound like she's in the middle of a hostage crisis every time she's on WWE programming now? You know, I've never really enjoyed seeing Lana on WWE TV. She's not an ugly woman, but like as a character, she has never to me served any purpose. Aside from being like the valet and the mouthpiece for Rusev early on, I don't give a shit about Lana in any role on WWE TV if it is not involving Rusev. When they were feuding, it was trash. When she was with Bobby Lashley, it was trash. When she was with Dolph Ziggler, it was trash. When she was on her own, going for the Smackdown Women's Championship a couple of years ago, that was trash too. She sucks as a talker. She's terrible in the ring. I just don't really see what use she has, to be honest with you. I really don't. I don't get the whole Lana thing. So, yeah, it's very awkward whenever she's on the screen. She sounds terrible. She sounds like she's reciting lines. Her matches were even worse to watch. So, yeah, get her the fuck off my TV, please. So, Peyton Royce's new finisher was quite nice, wasn't it? He asks. It was. I thought it was a cool finisher. That is the same move that Goldust either still does or did as a finisher. I forgot what he called it, but not. I know he has the finisher in the corner that he used to, where he would, like, prop their legs. You know, you'd spread their legs in the corner, and it sounds weird, but then he would kick them in the crotch. Maybe it was called, like, the final curtain, and it looked cool when he did it. It is a cool finisher. The not inverted suplex. It's like a neck breaker suplex, whatever. And Peyton Royce, you know, she is much better than Billie Kay in the ring, like, by far. I think of the two, if they were to break up, which would be stupid, she could have a better career for herself, because she is much better in the ring than Billie Kay is. I still think that'd be dumb, even though I really don't care for them together at this point. They're just unbearable to listen to on the show, which is not the kind of heat that I would, you know, that's that they should be getting. It's not like, oh, I hate them heat. It's like, I want to change the channel type heat. But anyway, I thought the finisher looked great. And she had a pretty good finisher before. That's the thing. I don't really think there was any reason to change it. I think she was doing like the Widow's Peak, I thought. At least in NXT. I haven't seen her win with that in a while. I don't remember what she's been winning with lately on the main roster, if she's been winning at all, to be honest with you. But at one point in NXT, she was winning with like a Widow's Peak-like finisher, and it looked great. But hey, if she's going to retire that in favor of either a second finisher or just a whole other finisher altogether, then whatever she hit on Monday is a great replacement, because that looked great. Let's see. His third question, will we see more talents deciding to stay home as more and more people in the company test positive? Yeah, I'm sure we're already starting to see that. I mean, Sami Zayn wasn't immediate. It was pretty soon after Roman. Roman was the first, I think. And then Roman didn't even show up to WrestleMania. Sami Zayn at least did WrestleMania and then said, hey, I'm not coming to the show. So it was Roman, then Sami, and now Kevin. Now Kevin, he was hurt after WrestleMania, but I also thought one of the reasons why he wasn't on the show for like a month was because he didn't want to be there, I guess. He didn't feel safe or whatever. So he was gone, and now he's gone again. He has not been in the last couple set of tapings. He actually put out a video in tweet form on, I want to say Monday, talking about why he wasn't there. It was either Sunday or Monday, and he explained that his wife's grandfather actually passed away due to the virus. So why would he want to go to work when 30 people are testing positive, you know? I don't blame him at all. And it's not like he was in the middle of a... The thing is, I can't even say, he wasn't in the middle of a world title program, so what does it matter? Roman Reigns was. Roman Reigns was in the middle of a Universal Championship push. He would probably be Universal Champion right now, had he not gone home, but who gives a shit? You gotta prioritize safety and health over wrestling and storylines. Who cares about any of that, you know? So... I think that's cool that he stayed home. I assume we will be seeing more people take similar courses of action. I could see WWE simply saying like, oh, nothing to see here, people. As more people, their conditions improve and then nothing will really change. They are actually testing for the virus now, which I'm not really sure why they weren't doing that to begin with. I ranted about that last week and the week before on Wrestle Rant Radio, kind of living up to the name of the show in that respect. But yeah, I could see more people staying home. I absolutely could see it. Not a whole bunch of people, like the whole roster says, oh, I won't be there. Raw seemed like they had a lot of people saying, there were a lot of people on Raw this week. The only people missing from the show that I could pick out were Randy Orton, Austin Theory. I think Theory either had it or the whole allegations thing is why he wasn't on the show. I don't think he's injured. Orton may have said, hey, I'm not going to be there. Rey Mysterio, I believe, appeared on the Titantron because he said I wasn't going to be there. But he's still appearing on the show for now. Liv Morgan wasn't on the show, but I think that's because she was doing something else, or she was on like a boat or something. I don't know. I forgot what the report had indicated. But there weren't a lot of people. The Street Profits, I know, were two other people who weren't on the show. I don't know what their status was. Natalya wasn't there, but I think that's just because Tyson Kidd had a fever, and they wanted to keep her off the show just in case. Just to be safe, which is smart. I mean, they should have been doing this a while ago, but still. So anyway, and then from SmackDown, like there were a few people missing from SmackDown last week. Otis was not on the show. Mandy Rose was not on the show. So not really sure what that's about. I mean, when you hear 30 people tested positive, that obviously includes in-ring talent. They can't say anything right now, but I assume that includes in-ring talent as well. So AJ Styles wasn't on the show. I don't know if he got it or if he simply said, hey, I'm not going to show up. I don't know. He wasn't on the show. Drew Gulak was, and he was supposed to face Gulak, so I guess we'll find out pretty soon. If he's not on SmackDown this week or next week, it's probably pretty apparent that he just doesn't want to show up right now, which is smart. But anyway, yeah, it won't be like a widespread of people. It won't be like 40 people opting to stay home. I think a majority of people realize that they aren't in the same position of a Roman Reigns, and they realize, like, Kevin Owens is fine. But if, I don't know. I mean, they say, oh, yeah, that's okay if you stay home. But then they'll use that against you. There was reported heat against Sami Zayn. I don't believe that, but I could believe it. I could definitely see that being the case, where there was heat on Sami for staying home. Because he was the Intercontinental Champion. Who gives a fuck? Who cares, you know? But anyway, next question from @GoldenAce Okada from Twitter. Should WWE have had Shayna Baszler be the one who attacked Charlotte Flair instead of Nia Jax? Yeah, I heard Solomonster say that on a show, and I completely agree. I mean, dude, who gives a fuck about Nia Jax? She's terrible. I have no desire to see a Charlotte-Nia Jax match at all. I assume that's what they're building to when Charlotte comes back, probably at not Survivor Series, hopefully sooner than that, SummerSlam. But Shayna and Charlotte makes way more sense. Now, if the idea is to have Asuka beat Sasha at Extreme Rules, and then she faces Shayna and loses at SummerSlam, then I'm all for it. But if they have no plan for Sasha, or rather Shayna at all, and that she's just not on the show because they have nothing for her, and they're not building the Shayna facing Asuka, because if Shayna's facing Asuka at SummerSlam, then you can't do Shayna and Charlotte, and maybe they want to save Shayna and Charlotte for down the road. I don't know. But it doesn't really seem like that's the case. So I'm hoping that's what they were going for. That's the idea as to why it wasn't Shayna. Maybe Shayna was another one who opted to stay home. I don't think so. I heavily doubt that because she was on Raw up until like May. And, you know, everyone else who chose to stay home did so. Like even Kevin Owens did so after WrestleMania. Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns. Shayna was on the show up until mid-May. So I don't really believe that. But, yeah, I absolutely agree. It should have been Shayna attacking Charlotte instead of Nia Jax to build that as a future feud instead of Nia Jax versus Charlotte, which I don't really care about. The first match they had, which they referenced on Raw a week or two ago when Nia Jax initially attacked Charlotte, was not good. It was not a good match. And maybe it'll be better this time, but I'm not holding my breath. Their second question: could you see Damian Priest being the one to take the NXT Championship from Karrion Kross when he wins it? Not right now. I mean, he is getting over. I mean, I can't even say he's getting over. There's no fans. I've liked what we've seen from Damian Priest recently. I just interviewed him a week ago for DailyDDT.com, so check that out again if you haven't already. But I don't get that. I don't get that sense. I don't. That's also, you're also thinking way down the road. So if Priest has a lot of momentum by that point, and he has momentum now, but if he has a lot of momentum by then, and then maybe he could be the one to beat Karrion Kross. But like, I'm hoping Keith Lee wins next week, and then Kross will be the one to take the title from Keith Lee. That's at least like the remainder of the year, if not beyond that. And Karrion, when he wins it, probably not anytime soon, but when he wins it, he shouldn't be dropping it soon either. So I don't think a Damian Priest championship run is anywhere near happening anytime soon. I mean, maybe by the time they would even consider putting the championship on him, he could already be main roster bound by that point. You never know. We just don't know. But still, it's not a bad idea. But he's going to really have to have a lot more momentum than he does now. And he has momentum, but not to the point where I want to see him as the NXT champion. Golden Ace Okada's third question: with Tessa Blanchard no longer the Impact World Champion, who do you see winning the Impact World Championship at Slammiversary? So I referenced this before, but it's now a four-way between Trey, Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards, and a mystery fourth person. Trey is not winning the championship. He got screwed out of competing in the tournament to crown a new number one contender a month or two ago. That's the only reason why he's in there. He's not world championship material. That's just random. I like the guy, but he's not going to win the world championship, nor should he. Ace Austin I like. He's actually been a very cool pet project for them over the last year. They've gotten him over as a nice heel. He's beaten some top names. He's pinned, I think, Tessa Blanchard before, I think. He beat her at Bound for Glory, not her, like, one-on-one, but she was involved in that ladder match when he won the X Division Championship, and he held that for about 6 months. He was champion for a while. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind Ace Austin winning, and I think Moose would make more sense, but it looks like they're setting a Moose versus fucking Tommy Dreamer, which, been there, done that, don't care. Tommy Dreamer's like the new Big Show of Impact. He doesn't turn every other week, but, like, he's always there when there's no reason for him to be, and I love Tommy Dreamer. But why is he a regular on the show in 2020? That's my question. No one really benefits from beating Tommy Dreamer in 2020 when everyone and their mother is beating Tommy Dreamer. But I would rather see Moose in that role. I think he makes the most sense. He's one of the best people they have going right now. But it doesn't look like he'll be involved in the match. Eddie Edwards, it's been a while since he's been champion, so I like Eddie a lot. He hasn't been champion like over 3.5 years. It's been a long time. So I wouldn't mind if they went down that road, put the belt back on Eddie. The funny thing about Eddie is that the guy has been there through the thick and the thin. There were rumors of him going to WWE a couple years ago. He said no, stuck with Impact. He has been the, no issues, no domestic problems, no domestic abuse issues with Alicia, his real-life wife, who's also on the show. He hasn't left. He hasn't threatened to leave as far as we know. And the guy has not gotten a world championship opportunity in over 3 years. Yet they'll give the belt to fucking, Del Rio. And I like Eli Drake, but, he ended up leaving. And Austin Aries they'll give the belt to. And, man, Tessa Blanchard, who I like, but still problematic. Dude, just give the guy his due at this point, I don't know. But I wouldn't mind Eddie, but it really seems like that the fourth person involved will end up winning the championship. I hope to fucking God that it won't be Eric Young. I don't mind Eric Young going back to Impact. I don't mind that at all. But putting the belt on Eric Young in 2020, no thank you. The guy was never a world champion performer to begin with. But especially now, no thanks. After losing to No Way Jose on main event, that would just be ridiculous. I know EC3, I guess that's kind of a joke because EC3 has also lost to No Way Jose on main event, I'm sure. But at least EC3 is a perennial top talent. The guy is really, really good. He made a name for himself in Impact, as did Eric Young. But he's a fresher face. He never really got his just due in WWE. Again, I guess neither did Eric Young. There's a lot of similarities there. But I don't look at Eric Young and say, oh, that's a world champion. EC3 I do. And he was a world champion multiple times in Impact. Never held it for a third time, which you would think would have happened. EC 3-time Impact World Champion. It kind of writes itself. But anyway. Yeah, so I'm hoping it's EC3 and he wins it. If it's Eric Young, then I think Eddie Edwards wins the championship. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, do you think Big Show's spot in this feud with Randy Orton was meant for Kevin Owens before he pulled out? I never really thought about it like that. I didn't really think about it like that, but that's not a bad idea. It is possible, but I don't think so. It doesn't really make much sense. I mean, granted, the Orton-Big Show feud makes no sense, but what they're going for here is that Big Show's a legend, and Orton wants to kill the legends. So from Orton to go from beating Edge and then, attacking Christian, I think Kevin Owens was on the Raw after Backlash, wasn't he? I don't remember, but, so yeah, with Kevin Owens, it just wouldn't have made sense, unless the idea was like, oh, they're Canadian, I'm Canadian, they're my friends, why would you attack them? But Kevin Owens and Orton should not be a filler feud. Maybe they probably would have done it, but I think Big Show, they want him on the show probably to promote the Netflix show, for one thing. He was going to be around anyway to do the Street Profits Viking Raiders bullshit, which is fucking stupid. The whole ninjas nonsense. I don't mind the skits. I like the skits, but the ninjas nonsense was complete crap. So with Big Show, it seemed like they were already going in that direction with him. It's not like, oh, Kevin Owens pulled out, we need the Big Show. Big Show, he is a future Hall of Famer. I don't really see him as being a legend just because he's been around for so long actively, for the most part. So I don't really see it like that at all. But I could see what they're going for, though. I can understand why they would put Big Show in that role. So, yeah, I think it was always meant for Big Show. It could have been Kevin Owens, but I'm honestly glad that it wasn't, because they can save that as a future feud down the road. Because if it was Kevin Owens, he was not beating Randy Orton. So I'm kind of glad that he wasn't fed to Orton on a fucking filler B pay-per-view at Extreme Rules. At Iwagu91, do you think WWE and AEW should hold off on getting Tessa Blanchard? Yes, they should. I don't think WWE cares. The report recently from PW Insider or whatever, Pro Wrestling Sheet, maybe I forgot who it was, said that WWE was interested in Tessa. I don't know if they reached out or whatever. That doesn't really surprise me, but the issue, Tessa now, she wasn't accused of domestic abuse. Like Moose, he almost went to WWE, but I guess the story was that he had past problems with domestic abuse. He had charges, and there's a whole other story with that, which I guess paints him in a better light than what it sounds like. That's a whole other thing. But they saw the domestic abuse charges from years earlier, and they didn't sign him, so he went back instead, which was probably the best move. Maybe he would have done well in NXT, but he's just gotten so much better in Impact. Like, a lot better. He's been there for almost 4 years now. I'm really glad he went there. But yeah, so with Tessa, it's not a domestic abuse thing. She didn't do anything wrong, but she is problematic. So for these reports to come out from, like, Fightful and whatever, indicating, oh, WWE wants to get rid of all their problematic talent like Ligero and Travis Banks and Gallagher and people like that, and then to hire Tessa Blanchard, who, after the shit with Impact, is just, she's not in the right here either. And then with the racial slur stuff, even if it was from a couple of years ago, never apologized for it. So she has not had a great year overall, I would say. I would hold off for a little while. Wait for it to die down. By the time they sign her at some point, which is sure going to happen, I'm sure they will sign her eventually. I'm not doubting that at all. She's only 24. She has a lot of years ahead of her. They will sign her, whether it be soon or down the road. I mean, people will always say, oh, yeah, she's a racist, blah, blah, blah. I don't think the backlash will be as bad as it is right now. And rightfully so, again, because if she said what she said and she's not apologizing, that's pretty disgusting. But even putting that aside, which you shouldn't, but even if you did, you still have all these other issues that she's dealing with from her Impact run and leaving them high and dry as the world champion. How does WWE know that she won't do the same thing to them? You know what I'm saying? So, I would like to see her go to WWE, maybe not right away. I think it'd be cool if she showed up at fucking SummerSlam or something. I just don't know. I said last week that she's, AEW or I actually, I'm a fucking idiot because I said on the show here last week, oh, I see Tessa staying with Impact. How wrong was I for saying that shit? What a fool I came across as. But so don't take my word for it. Clearly, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just don't see them signing her right away. They very well could. AEW, I definitely see holding off. Absolutely. I mean, they're very big on the whole problematic thing. They suspended Sammy Guevara for comments that he made, albeit disgusting comments, from 4 years ago. If they're taking action like that, which they probably should just to save face, and it was bad what he said, but it was so long ago, he apologized, whatever. I talked about that last week. If they're taking action with stuff that happened 4 years ago, yet she said a racial slur that she did not apologize for, and then this shit comes out with the stuff with Impact, AEW would be fools to sign her. I mean, again, they're probably fans of her. Her dad's there, but I don't know. I mean, it would be cool to see her in like a four horsemen like faction with like Cody and her dad and Shawn Spears and the Revival maybe. That'd be sick. But the issue is that, I don't know, I don't know. I feel like it would just be a dumb move. I don't think they would want to sign her. Cody seems pretty smart with that stuff. I mean, Brandy Rhodes. I mean, I don't think she would tolerate that shit at all. I don't know if her and Tess have ever got along. I'm not sure about that. I don't think that would fly. So I don't see AEW signing her right away, if at all. WWE probably down the road, but hopefully not anytime soon. For their own sake. Their second question from @Iwagu91. When Apollo Crews cheated one time to beat Shelton Benjamin, that was 2 weeks ago, or a week ago on Raw, I think. I saw it as the former getting a ladder taste, 2 weeks ago. I saw it as the former giving the ladder, I think you meant to say, a taste of his own medicine for attempting to do the same thing beforehand, rather than hinting at a heel turn. What do you think? Yeah, that makes sense. They didn't really make that clear. And I guess whenever someone cheats, at least in this day and age, it seems like, oh, heel turn. Like, they got to make it clear that he did it as like a turnaround or turnabout is fair play. Is that what the whole phrase is? Turnabout is fair play or fair game, whatever. That makes sense. It didn't really seem like they were going down the heel road with him this past week on Raw or the week before when he beat Shelton more decisively. So I guess it was a one-time thing. But I mean, the cheat to beat Shelton, I know Shelton cheated or he tried to cheat to beat Apollo. But like, if you really need to cheat to beat Shelton Benjamin, it doesn't look too good on you. So, I guess that's what they were going for, because there has been no hint of a heel turn since then. But I don't know if I would have done that, though. I feel that either Ron Simmons or Michael Cole will induct JBL into the WWE Hall of Fame. Who do you think will? Definitely Ron Simmons. I mean, they're very close. Ron Simmons spoke very highly of JBL on that episode of Photo Shoot from a couple of weeks ago, from 2 weeks ago, I think, that I reviewed here on the channel. Obviously, JBL inducted Ron into the Hall of Fame, I believe, a couple of years ago. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Ron. You said Michael Cole, and yeah, I know they're close, but Ron and JBL go way back, even before JBL and Michael Cole were buddies. They've always really thought very highly of each other, so I'd be shocked if it was anyone but Ron Simmons inducting JBL into the Hall of Fame. If Undertaker does get inducted into the Hall of Fame, do you think that he should be the sole, as in the only, one of his class? People have been saying that for a long time now. I agree. I think that'd be awesome, and I think it works because Taker is one of the greatest of all time. But the thing is that first of all, I don't see that happening because they like to make a lot of money off of like multiple people going in, having a 5-hour show, which isn't necessary. That's like saying like, what were people's ideas with that though? I like the idea, but like, is that having like 10 people come on stage to talk about Taker before he talks himself? I think people were floating around that idea before Taker broke character recently. Like before we had heard what he actually sounds like or the first time we had seen him out of character in a long time. Then I would kind of get it. But now that he's done like 1 million interviews in the last couple of weeks and months alone on the Last Ride stuff, like with ESPN and Sam Roberts and Peter Rosenberg and every other show under the sun except for mine, I don't see that happening. It's like, oh, okay, we know what he sounds like now. I've heard him so much out of character that to see a whole show dedicated to him, maybe like an episode of Raw, but they kind of did that with SmackDown last week. So again, I like the idea. I like it a little less now because we've already heard about him. We've already heard him talk about his career so much. I don't really love the idea anymore, but it's still a good idea. I still think he's deserving of it as long as it's a short show. If it's a 5-hour show with Shawn Michaels coming on stage to talk about Taker for 20 minutes, I have no interest. We've already seen that. Not really. Like, if it's like a 30-minute thing where he talks and that's it, then yeah, or Kane inducts him or whoever. But other than that, I mean, no. Like, I don't want to see it. I hate the idea of the Hall of Fame being 4 or 5 hours anyway. The speeches should be on the shorter side. If they wouldn't do that for Ric Flair, one of the greatest of all time, I don't see them doing that with The Undertaker. I know he's a different character, it's a different person. Flair pretty much had the show all to himself anyway. Like, he talked for like almost an hour, I think, and they had to kind of get him off the stage. They had to force him to stop his speech. I don't really see that happening. And again, with the Taker thing, it would be cool if it was like a shorter show and it was a different format. I just don't see that happening. At E1-3A, with all that's going on, what do you think would be the breaking point for WWE to stop weekly programming? Or are even Main Event and 205 Live destined to run forever? I don't know. Honestly, I think the breaking point would be if someone died from the virus. Like if Ric Flair died or if one of their active performers died, then yes, I think that would be a breaking point. Yeah, people have gotten sick and that's bad, but in their eyes, hey, no one's died, it's okay. This is a very serious thing, though. Very serious. So for people to have even contracted this thing in the first place in WWE is not good, because they should have been testing from the get-go. So, I honestly, I hate to even say it, but I think it's going to take for someone to die for them to stop doing the shows. And even then, I'm not 100% sure they would stop. They might do a tribute episode of Ric Flair one week, and then move right the fuck on to Randy Orton versus Big Show in the main event of Raw. Like, honestly, I don't think they would stop. Like, Vince McMahon will not stop. Unless Vince McMahon himself were to die from the virus, I do not see them stopping running shows. Unless there was something extremely serious. And this is very serious, but if, like, multiple of their talent died, then maybe. And God forbid we ever get to that point, which I don't think we will. But when you have a 70-year-old Ric Flair at the fucking PC, when you have confirmed cases of the coronavirus, that's stupid enough. So, honestly, I don't see them stopping running shows unless something extremely serious happened involving death. And even then, I'm not too sure. I hate to say that, but it's true. At Scarlet1 with the final 2 questions here. Best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 37, so from last week. The best from NXT and Dynamite, I like I keep saying Eric Escobar. Santos Escobar versus Jake Atlas. I like the match. Well wrestled. Escobar comes across like a complete star. Big fan. The main event was good too. I really liked the main event. Very good main event between Keith Lee, Finn Balor, Johnny Gargano for the NXT North American Championship. Good show overall. From Dynamite, I really liked the best part of the show by far for me was FTR versus SCU. Great match, which wasn't even supposed to happen, by the way. It was supposed to be FTR versus QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes, the Natural Nightmares. But QT Marshall, I guess, was exposed to someone who had COVID, so he stayed home. He stayed home out of, precaution, which is smart. But hey, it gave us a great match. I don't really care about the Natural Nightmares, but I love SCU, and that was a great match. And the Chris Jericho Orange Cassidy brawl was probably exactly what it needed to be. A good show closing segment. I don't think Cassidy's winning next week, but nor should he probably. But it was still a good segment. Overall, I didn't really care for Dynamite. I thought it was a fine show. As a go-home show for Fyter Fest, it wasn't overly exciting, but it served its purpose. The worst from both shows, again, not anything too bad, but from NXT, the Ripley, Aaliyah stuff, I don't give a fuck. How did Ripley go from contending for the Women's Championship mere months ago and holding that belt and being on this hot streak to feuding with Aaliyah and Robert Stone? Who fucking cares? I just could not give two shits about tonight's handicap match, pitting Aaliyah and Robert Stone against Rhea Ripley. Who gives a shit? The Dexter Lumis and Roderick Strong match last week, I didn't really care for at all. It lasted all of like a minute or so. That was done by design, of course, to set up for tonight's strap match, so I get why they did that, but as a segment, it was kind of whatever. But I assume the strap match tonight will be a lot better. And then from Dynamite, again, there really wasn't any worst. I just didn't really care for the broken Matt Hardy versus Santana match. And Matt Hardy's overall looked very good since coming to AEW in the ring. But in that match, for whatever reason, that match alone, he just looked like he was working a bit slower, and it just, I don't know, the match wasn't that great. It was like an 11-minute match with one half of Santana and Ortiz, who are much better as a tag team than on their own. It should not take Matt Hardy 11 minutes to beat Santana, because Matt Hardy is an infinitely bigger star than Santana on his own. So, anyway, the match was fine, but I just, I don't know, I just don't really care for it a ton, just because the match didn't really mean anything. And again, I know they had to switch some things around. Sammy Guevara was supposed to face Matt Hardy. Then they had to cancel that with Sammy Guevara getting suspended. I get it. But what we got instead, it was fine. And I know Matt Hardy's kind of managing Private Party right now, so it makes sense before Private Party faces Santana and Ortiz tonight. But as a match, it was kind of just dull. And then finally, from @Scarlet1, did you hear about Velveteen Dream's car accident? So I did. So the news first broke about a week ago on Friday, I think, that Velveteen Dream was involved in a car accident. This is in addition to all the allegations out against them right now, which it's not looking too good for Velveteen Dream in WWE. His days very well might be numbered according to various sources that I've read about. So with Dream, it wasn't serious enough. I guess he was discharged from the hospital. He was discharged from the hospital that same day. So it wasn't that serious. But according to the report that came out, I think yesterday or on Monday, that Velveteen Dream, I guess, ran a red light and then hit someone or someone hit him. I don't know if the other person had serious injuries. They didn't really know that, but Dream was not serious enough to the point where, he had to be hospitalized for long or broke anything, I guess. I don't think so. But yeah, I heard about the car accident. Very weird. A lot of weird stuff going on right now with Velveteen Dream. I know his character is weird, but like legitimately weird. Like the car accident is weird. Running a red light. I mean, that can't be a coincidence with everything else going on right now with him, with the whole allegation thing. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on. He lost both of his NXT championship matches earlier this year at TakeOver and then on the episode of NXT before that. So I'm not really sure what's going on with him, but I assume we find out soon enough. And that's going to do it for me, guys, on today's edition of #AskGSM episode 344 for July 1st, 2020. Here's hoping we can make it through the rest of 2020 together, intact. COVID, the injustice, the racial injustice going on right now. A lot of stuff, the speaking out stuff. There's a lot of negative shit coming out of 2020, but hopefully we can all emerge from this year better than ever and stronger than we were at the beginning of it. That's my only positive take on 2020. Otherwise, it can just go fuck off. But 4th of July is on Saturday. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. I will be back here next Wednesday. So here's the cool thing. Here's something really, really cool. So I believe next Wednesday, not to the day, but around that day, I think it's like, actually, it might be to the day. I think it is, now that I think about it. I think it was exactly 7 years ago, to the day of next Wednesday. I'd have to go back and check it out. You guys can verify for me if you want. You just look back in the playlist and it's in the description box down below. July 8th, 2013, I started hashtag AskGSM, which is pretty fucking cool. So for episode 345, it's going to be a 7-year anniversary show, I think. Maybe we make it live. Fuck it. Let's go live. Who knows? I've been doing more live streams recently. Alexis and I did one of a watch-along for Lilo and Stitch, which I know sounds random, but it was 626 Day, June 26th, whatever, Experiment 626. We did that last Friday. This Friday, I'm hoping to do a live stream of Back to the Future, with it being the 35-year anniversary of the movie. One of my favorite, if not, well, I mean, the whole trilogy is my favorite movie of all time, but the second one specifically. But we are going to be watching the first one probably on Friday, live stream, watch it. But maybe I'll go live next Wednesday, and we'll do a live episode of hashtag AskGSM on the exact 7-year anniversary of hashtag AskGSM, which is pretty cool. But anyway, guys, it's storming outside. It is thundering. I got to get out of here and start uploading this before my internet shits the bed again, and I can't upload the show until 8 o'clock. So hopefully YouTube works well this time, and it uploads the show in a timely manner, but who knows? YouTube is very unpredictable. But anyway, guys, have a great one. Oh, and also, before we ride off into the sunset here, 2 things that I forgot to mention. Of course, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with a hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. And also, one more time, check out my exclusive interview right now with NXT's own Roderick Strong, 1/4, the Undisputed Era, former NXT North American Champion, right now on DailyDDT.com before NXT tonight when he faces Dexter Lumis in NXT's first ever strap match. That is available right now, once again, on DailyDDT.com. Have a great one, guys. Enjoy 4th of July on Saturday, and we might be going live next Wednesday for hashtag AskGSM episode 345 on the exact 7-year anniversary. Until then, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.